Hello and welcome to episode 39 of Crucible Bootcamp. I'm your host King Koala, and today we're going to be taking a look at a rumble match on the new map Skyline by a blade dancer who runs a loadout that's kind of schizophrenic, and we'll go into why that isn't necessarily a good thing. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Oh man. So, this is sent to me by a guy named Coxybraz, and he's running a loadout that I haven't covered at all on the show yet. He's running Blade Dancer, normal skip grenades, all that stuff, all that jazz, all that normal stuff. But the thing that we haven't covered on the show is invisibility. So he's running Shadowjack, and I think it's called Stalker. So when you crouch down, you go invisible. Now, when you go invisible, there's a certain purpose to going invisible. So first of all, let's talk about what it actually does to go invisible. When you're invisible, all you do is you disappear from radar. It's just like crouching initially, right? But crouching, you flash in and out of radar. When you're invisible, you don't show up on radar at all. However, there's a very loud audio cue that's directional. So if you listen to game sound in something like a headset, or even on surround sound speakers, you can kind of gauge where that person is based on where you hear them go invisible. Now, because you don't show up on radar, that means it gives you an opportunity to perform flanks really easily. But that's countered by the fact that someone can hear which direction you're coming from. So when you go invisible, you want to go around where you think players are going to anticipate you moving to. You don't want to go to that straight into them because they're going to expect you to go from, wherever they heard you right into them. That normally means that you can sneak up into closer ranges to pull them into an engagement with you. That means you don't normally want to go around corners. You don't want anyone to see your outline. So the way it looks visually functions a lot like active camo in Halo. So if you've played Halo or you've seen Halo played, you aren't actually invisible to the other players. There's a little bluish sheen to you, and it shows an outline of a Guardian as you run around. So you have to understand that when you go invisible, you're not actually invisible. You're just kind of translucent, or have some level of less than 100% opacity. Right? You're see-through. So knowing that, the way we want to use invisibility is to gain position on the map, like slowly move up. That means as soon as you turn invisible, it's really important for you to move forward, to try to get into an engagement, to use that opportunity of not showing up on radar to get closer to someone. Now there we see the kind of predictive skip grenade. I don't really like that skip grenade, and throughout this entire match, we're going to see Coxy pretty much never use skip properly. And the problem is that these skip grenades, if that was to tag someone, it's not capitalizing on anything, right? Because you're going all the way around. So maybe you expect your opponent to run away, but if you tag your opponent and push them straight forward, then you're going to be able to kill them really quickly, right? You don't have that. You don't have as many bullets that need to hit in order to kill them. So this is something right now that a lot of players I see do, and that's they die to whatever engagement space they were in, and they think, oh, I didn't have the right primary for that situation. So right now we see that he's initially running an auto rifle, the unbent tree, the basically Doctrine archetype Iron Banner gun. He sees that, hey, I was at pulse rifle range, I'm going to put on a pulse rifle, which is fine. Now that we've put on a pulse rifle, we have a much more balanced loadout. So we can kind of engage players at all ranges with a Trespasser, a sidearm, and pulse. And Trespasser also lets us play in the air. But again, we see that he goes invisible, and this is a problem with a lot of players that go invisible. They don't do anything with it. As soon as you go invisible, you need to be moving. And then pushing straight up at someone like that pretty much ruins the invisibility, the entire point of invisibility. You never want to push someone head on with invisibility. You want to push up to where they're going to round a corner, or you want to push around them to get behind them or beside them because they can't read radar. So it's just like they're playing Inferno. As long as you stay out of their vision, you don't give them a chance to see the camo, it's going to function just like it would in an Inferno match. And if you've played Spooky Trials over the last couple weeks, you know how that goes. So he lands all the shots, really good. Manages to kill the guy, just barely. And going to go back invis. Again, as soon as we go invis, we need to engage around. So we see same situation. Someone is above on that platform above us, in like the upper B. I think that's A side, or C side. But we're going to go around this time. And this is why it's really good, because as we go around, you can see here, our opponent has no idea what's going on. They're not paying attention at all. So this is an opportunity. This is the reason why invisibility can be really good. Now we talked earlier about skip grenade, right? And how skip grenade needs to be used in primary battles to prime your target. So the way invisibility works is if you throw your skip grenade out, it's going to break your invisibility. If you melee, it's going to break your invisibility. If you use blink, that's going to break invisibility. But if you use better control or triple jump, that doesn't break invisibility. And the reason why I bring up skip grenade is because when you're invisible and you're not running a shotgun, the first shots that you take need to have a very high impact on the fight. So that means, if you're running a pulse rifle, you want your first burst out of that pulse rifle to be all headshots, the best you can, because that's instantly going to give you a huge advantage over your opponent. Again, we're trying to put ourselves in situations where we're always getting first shot off. That's the whole point of proper positioning, is we get first shot off, and that gives us a huge advantage over winning a gunfight. Sometimes that even lets us miss an entire burst to go back to neutral with our opponent. If our opponent's hitting all their shots and we got one shot off first and then we missed one, we're still neutral with them because it's the same time frame, right? We just had a little extra time to get an additional burst off. So you just give yourself more leeway to win. Now, skip grenade doesn't work so well because once you break that invisibility, when you're in that range, you're in shotgun range. So you want to kill them as fast as possible. So that's why for anyone that runs invisibility, whether on Blade Dancer, you want to run flux grenade, not skip grenade. Because when you finally break that invisibility, you want lethality. You want to run a shotgun and you want to run flux grenade. Flux grenade lets you kill from well outside of shotgun range, which is really good because when players hear you and they understand where you're coming from, you're not going to get into that shotgun range very easily. But you are going to get into a range where you can stick them with a flux grenade. So again, as soon as we get a kill, back to being invisible. Now, some people really don't like invisibility. Some people think this is like a really passive, campy strategy. It's really not, because to get the most out of invisibility, you have to move. You can't just go invisible and stay in one place. That doesn't really do anything. You would be just as a good crouching in one place and not moving at all. The only advantage is you get true disappearance off radar. That's the only advantage over normal crouching that invisibility gets. So you're not taking advantage of half, or the whole reason you go invisible, and that's to not be on radar ever. So here, I would have liked to see a slide out, or even a jump out with your trespasser ready to do that challenge. But, I mean, our opponent misses like 2 or 3 shots, which is good. Now, as we push back in, we have to keep in mind we need to know how much ammo we have. That's really important, especially when you use trespasser. Most players are only going to have enough for 2 kills because you're going to miss a lot if you're not used to it. If you're really good at trespasser, I would say you have enough for a full 3 kills, but you have to land every single shot. 4 is if you have absolute perfect accuracy every single time you kill. Like your 2 bursting players, and then you're on your unrepentant proc, you're getting a 1 burst 6 shot. Hitting 4 headshots, 2 body shots, or 3 headshots, 3 body shots, depending on the armor level of your of the opponent. So it's really important if you're staying alive for a long time. When you run sidearms, you know all the time how much ammo you have, because then situations like this happen where if we had our trespasser there, that engagement would have been very easily ours. We had first shot. We probably had 2 shots on our trespasser because we jumped into that lane to challenge. But because we didn't know how much ammo we had, then we just fell flat on our face. But now that we spawned again, we have more ammo again. So challenging, and as you can see, trespasser, even though you're outside of effective range, can kill very efficiently from very far away. It is a hit scan gun, which means that it's like a hand cannon or an auto rifle or a pulse rifle. Where your reticle is where the bullets are going to go. There's no travel time. Like a fusion rifle, or something like a Vestian Dynasty, the Queen's Choice, or Dreg's Promise. Those are all non-hit scan. They all have travel time on the bolts, so you have to lead your target a little bit, just like you would a fusion rifle. Any other sidearm, it's all hit scan. And if you don't believe me, you can probably check my Twitter feed for Greg Peng, who is one of the PvP Crucible developers, and he just confirmed to me that yeah, they are all hit scan except for those 3 that I named. So if you had any doubt, there it is. So he does something again. He's switching guns. So it's really important when you load into a map that you're not switching guns all the time, because what it's going to do is it's going to mess with your engagement ranges, and it's going to change the way that you play the game in the middle of the map. And just like in a scientific experiment, you only want the things that change to be very limited, right? You want your variables to be small and easy to understand. So in Crucible, the variables are the other players. You only want to think about how the other players are going to move, what kind of loadouts they're running, what subclass they are. That's a lot of information to take in. Now, when you start switching your weapon on top of that, you're just overloading yourself with things to do in the game. And if you find yourself getting into engagements where it would be better to have a different weapon, you don't need to switch to that weapon. You need to avoid those engagements. Switching that weapon doesn't change the fact that you have an issue getting into the proper engagement space with your weapon you're using. But here it's like not quite as bad because he switched from a Clever Dragon to a Grasp. It's just it's a different weapon, but it's the exact same archetype. So nothing really changes functionally about the weapon or how many shots you need to kill or anything like that. Maybe you like the sight a little bit more, so that's why you switch. But you don't want to switch entire weapon classes because, again, you're just overloading yourself with information. Here, I've been starting to do more 2-minute drills, getting them up as best I can, and the last one I did was covering negative space. So that means you have to create gaps against shotgunners. And that's negative space, right? There's always something in front of you to keep you from your target or gap. If you don't do that, as we saw here, you're just going to get shot over and over again by a shotgun, and you're just going to die, right? He could put up a good fight. He got some primary shots on him. But all he did during that engagement was turn around. What he needed to do was turn around and back up at the same time. Yes, to those that argue with me about, it's always slower to backpedal than it is to move forward, and that's true. It is easier to move forward at someone than it is to back away from them. But then you have to add in things like jumps. So if you jump, not only are you creating a gap horizontally, but you're creating a gap vertically. And oftentimes the jump, if you do it at an angle, will force your opponent's aim to move on 2 axes, up and to the side. And if you've played, any game, it's really easy to aim straight up, straight down, or straight across. But when you have to start aiming diagonally, it becomes much more difficult for your opponent to hit you. So jumping at an angle, or if you're Titan skating backwards, if you're a Warlock gliding backwards, or gliding straight up into the air, creating an even larger gap is going to create the space that you need to hopefully have enough time to kill the opponent. Now, if you do jump up in the air, your gun, if you want to challenge with your gun effectively, it needs to have Icarus on it, or you need to be running a sidearm or a hand cannon. Sidearms and hand cannons both have fantastic in-air accuracy. If you have Icarus on a hand cannon, it's practically as good as firing on the ground. It's not like 100% accurate, but it's pretty darn close, especially if you practice. Just a little thing to note about firing hand cannons in the air. You want to aim for the body. because the bullet is still going to travel based on how you're falling. Your falling pattern, whether you're jumping up or falling down, is going to change how the shot actually comes out and the trajectory of it. So if you aim at center mass in the chest, you're going to hit more shots than if you try to aim for the head or you try to aim for the foot, because it's just going to go everywhere. So again, now he's done what I've been talking about this entire time. And that's he's switched to a completely new loadout. He dropped his sidearm and he put on a last word and a shotgun. Now, after dying to a shotgun, this kind of change tells me that you aren't good at combating shotguns by using negative space, by using positioning to your advantage. As soon as you get pushed and you get killed by a shotgun, that doesn't mean you need to shotgun. That means you need to have your positioning a little bit better. You need to be more mindful about pushing into players. You need to be more mindful about where your cover is, how you're engaging from it. Are you in the open? Are you in a choke point? These are the things that you should be asking yourself, not just ruin your special loadout and put on a shotgun. Like, because you lose all ammo when you switch guns now, you're still just better off having the sidearm on. And it's the trespasser kills just as fast as last word. And because sidearms aren't as heavily affected by bloom as hand cannons, like the bloom on sidearms is very, very slight, then I mean, you're gonna engage in the same spaces that you would with the last word. The last word, your engagement space is going to be maybe 10 meters longer, maybe, if you run soft. If you run ag, it's going to be like 7.5, because the sidearm is going to be really effective in that 8 out to about 15 meter range. And 15 meters is a sweet spot for last word. So you're not really gaining anything by switching off. Maybe you're more comfortable with last word, but still, you're giving yourself too many things to think about during these matches. Now, again, see, if your positioning was better here and you didn't push all the way out into this player, like you got initially lucky that he didn't just immediately shotgun you. And here's a good example of, again, using negative space because he was moving backwards the whole time. But if your opponent had better aim or just switched to their primary, you would have died there. Like 100%, no chance at all. And if they had just meleeed you after they hit you with that shotgun shot, you would have been dead there too. You always want to secure where you want to go to before you actually get there. And that means you need to understand how to read your radar as you're moving around the map. So if someone shows up on your radar, you need to take a second to decide, where are they? And if I push out any further, am I going to be in shotgun range? Am I pushing out into a choke point where if they just, if they close the gap at the same time I'm pushing out at them, are we going to meet like we did there? And am I just going to get shotgunned? Because if that's what's going to happen, if that's what you think is going to happen, then you need to wait. You need to let that person push up onto where you were originally going to go, and you just need to primary them down. You don't have to push into everyone you see on radar. You just have to analyze where they're at and then decide how you want the engagement to go. If you want to get into a shotgun fight, then that push out is perfectly fine if you think they're going to push into you. But if you don't have a shotgun on, or if you have a shotgun on and you don't have any ammo for it, you have to keep creating that space. Now, I haven't even touched on this, but it's been 6 minutes into this game, right? It's 4 minutes left on the clock. Rumble matches last 10 minutes. 6 minutes into this game, and we haven't seen a super yet. Not one. And 6 minutes in, you should normally have 2 supers as a Blade Dancer, especially if you're running max intellect, which a lot of Blade Dancers do. That's kind of standard. Discipline is the stat spread you want as a Blade Dancer. In Rumble, again, I harp on this all the time, but I'm going to harp on it again. As soon as you get your super, you should be using it. You should not be sitting on your super. And this kind of goes in every single game mode. As soon as you get your super, that's a free kill or a free opportunity for you to gain map advantage, especially if you get it sooner than everyone else. Like if you're on a tear, you go on a 5 kill streak, and then all of a sudden your super comes up 90 seconds into the game, that's your opportunity to just go ham, because there's no way, if you're on top of the leaderboard and it's only been 90 seconds, anyone else has their super. Absolutely no way. Um, so use it, right? Use that to your advantage. Use it to snowball the match. And if you use it and you get shut down by another super, you've already started recharging your next one. That's fine. That's just a good play on their part. But you want to take that chance to have an advantage over your opponent and use it. I watched the Farcog tournament, and players at that super high level were sitting on storms the entire match. Like, they wouldn't pop it a single time. You should just be popping it because, one, in fours, the res timer is only 3 seconds. And losing 3 seconds worth of map control is not a huge deal in a fours map. It's a pretty big deal in threes because it can convert into an entire team wipe. But because of the fact that there's still likely 3 of your teammates still alive, there's really very little risk to doing it. And if you bait out a shutdown super, then the next roaming super that your team has is going to be that much more effective. It's okay to trade super for super. There's nothing wrong with that. You shouldn't be afraid of that. And you should try to trade super for super. Obviously, you should try to bait out the shutdown super if you're using a roaming super. Or just pop it and, play super defensively. Give just the sound, the fact that you popped it, put fear into the opponents and have them not want to move. They're all going to run away. They're going to give up map control. That's your opportunity for your team to retake, the B area of the map. So we saw he finally picks up special, but the biggest issue, and there was a lot of time between when he picked up special and when he got in this engagement, that he just didn't reload his weapon. When you pick up special, so you see it's like at least 25 seconds. And I think there was even some time before. Right, so our weapon, we have ammo here right now, right? At 350. We should just continually be reloading. When you read radar, this is how radar works, okay? When you see the little, I'm circling up here in the corner, when you see the line on the edge of the radar, the distance that your opponent is, when that line is on there, is 23 meters to 31 meters. So what does that mean in game? That means if you're running a hand cannon, let's call Ice Luna, it has rifle barrel, so it's max range. Max range on a rifle barrel, Ice Luna is 31 meters. So the last point before damage drop-off starts happening is 31 meters. So that means every time someone shows up on radar and you're running a pulse rifle, you're running a scout rifle, you're running an Ice Luna with max range, you can challenge them in a primary fight. Every single time. Every single time. Once it gets into the pie slice in the outer ring, or the inner ring, that's 23 meters down to 8 meters. So that's a little bit more tricky to deal with because 23 meters is the sweet spot for an Ice Luna, right? That's where you want to be firing on players. That's sort of the edge of the effective range of the last word. So you only want to be last wording people when they're in that inner circle. And it goes all the way down to 8. Now 8 meters is the furthest out that you can go for a consistent shotgun kill. So more often than not, you will get a shotgun kill at 8 meters. Now 100% is probably something closer to 5 or 6 meters, but consistent, like again, more often than not, is going to be at 8 meters. So if you read your radar improperly, if you're in that 8 to 15 meter range, that's 1 or 2 slides away from getting shotgunned. So once they get into that center of that radar, that's when you have to be aware, am I going to get shotgunned? That's when you need to start thinking, are you going to get shotgunned? And then once they're in the flashing red circle in the center, that's 0 to 8 meters. So that's melee range, right? If someone is in there, you can melee them. Or, you're 1 slide away from meleeing them. And that can be, and it's in a sphere around you, right? It's above you, it's also below you. So understand that 8 meters isn't just, from where I am out, it's also from where I am up, from where I am down, or around, or at an angle, right? It's a big sphere around your Guardian. And that's why it's so easy to lose those extreme close quarters fights, because they could be anywhere. And that's why it's really important if you run a shotgun or you do a lot of close quarters combat to run high sensitivity, because in that situation you don't have much time to react because they're in melee range. It's very easy to kill you. So again, back to the original point, reload your gun. Reload, because you don't know the next time you're going to get an engagement. You need at least 2 shots in your shotgun at all points in time, unless you have no more ammo. If it's the only shot left, you should only have 1 shot. 2 shots is normally because in Rumble, you only have time to kill 2 people, because that's all that shows up, right? By the time the third guy shows up, you're normally really weak, and they just cleans you up for free. On the off chance the third guy shows up and you're still pretty healthy, normally you've had enough time between the second kill and reload 1 bullet and then get to the third kill. But at least have 2 shots in your shotgun. If you're running skirmish, try to have 3, just in case you have an opportunity to wipe the entire team. If you don't have 3 in and you get into a fight where you kill 1 guy, you kill a second guy, and then you forgot to reload once, and you have 1 in the chamber, but you got to reload it, you're going to be kicking yourself. So the little things like that build up, right? Little mistakes build up into huge issues. I've seen a lot of players that just have issues reloading their gun in general. Like after they finish a gunfight, they forget to reload the gun. And I'm the same way. Sometimes I forget to reload my gun. But that's something that's very basic that you just have to remember to do all the time. Because you never know when you're going to need that extra shot. Maybe, you only use 1 burst. But maybe the next engagement you get in, you have to fight 2 people. And you miss out on this killing the second guy by 1 burst. Again, you're just going to be kicking yourself. So you see kind of at the very end there, we finally pop our super, right? The very end. And we didn't even get a kill with it because the match ended. We could have had 3 supers that game, potentially, if we got more kills. But we would have had at least 2, just by time alone. That's it. And you just got it. You got to use it. I say this all the time, and it hurts me. It hurts me to see this happen, that you don't pop your super, but you just gotta do it. You just gotta do it. It's like, and you should feel good doing it too, right? It's the most powerful your Guardian can get is when you pop your super. It completely breaks the game wide open because it's an instant kill most of the time. No matter what you do, it's going to instantly kill someone. The only time you're not going to instantly kill someone is if you're running Bubble, and you should still pop your super because Bubble's awesome, or Stormcaller, and that's just a very basic damage over time. As long as you dance in at a shotgun range, you're good. So it's really easy to do that as a Stormcaller. Just don't push into players. Don't blink into players. If you're Stormcalling, don't blink into players. Blink forward before you get to them, and then kind of back up a little bit, kind of pull them into that range. And if they run away, then move a little bit closer. And then, if they're not paying attention, that's when you want to blink forward. But if they look at you and they see you coming, don't blink at them. That's bad. Because there's a period of time during the blink where you're never invulnerable during it. And there's a period of time during the blink where you're not going to be doing any damage. So that's their opportunity to actually kill you. And if you blink straight forward, they could potentially trade with you or just outright kill you. So we're going to go into Skyline just real quick. Oh, I had the wrong character. I'm kind of going to show you how you can use invisibility on my Blade Dancer. So let me actually get on the right character. Show you guys that. And then that'll basically be the episode. It's just show you kind of how to use invisibility a little bit more effectively. And then we'll call it a day. So kind of the big picture points is for Coxie is when you run a game, stick to the loadout you load into, right? And if you have the wrong loadout when you load into it, try to switch it. I would say he had the wrong loadout loading into that particular map. So it was good to initially switch to a pulse rifle. But after that, you don't want to mess with it. Just learn how that loadout functions, right? Learn the proper way to get into those engagement spaces and avoid the times where you would die, right? If you were trying to engage at scout range with a pulse rifle, that doesn't mean you need a scout on. That means you need to stop engaging at scout range and move a little bit closer. That's it. That's all you have to do. It's not this huge, paradigm shift where you have to change into a new weapon. You just have to avoid seeing players at that range or resist the urge to challenge everyone you see. Something I see a lot of players do is see man, shoot man, right? And that's pretty standard. If you see a guy, you want to kill him. That's your opportunity to get first shot off, which is good, right? You did everything right, except for when your gun can actually be used. You still have to keep track of the proper time that your gun's going to be effective. All right, let's put on. So as a Blade Dancer, if I'm running invisibility, Stalker, right? Gain invisibility after crouching in place after a short time. And if you're really going to go all in on invisibility, you want to use Shadowjack. And I'll show you why in just a second. And again, Flux Grenade over Skip Grenade. Skip Grenade's still good, don't get me wrong. Flux Grenade is going to take advantage of invisibility. Skip Grenade doesn't take it as much advantage of invisibility as Flux is going to. Plus, you're basically guaranteed to get hate mail sticking someone. People hate stickies. It's wonderful. Okay, so here's the difference between Shadowjack and not Shadowjack. So I'm going to crouch. It's going to take a few seconds. I'm going to invis. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 seconds, right? 6 seconds of invisibility. That's a decent amount of time. But what happens when I turn on Shadowjack? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 seconds. Okay, 9 seconds is an eternity compared to that 6 seconds before. So let's take the an opportunity where we saw where Coxie was going invis, right? So let's look at the difference, what that actually looks like in terms of actually challenging someone on this shelf. Okay, so let's start by doing it without Shadowjack on. Now it's still, I mean, Quick Draw and Fleet Footer are still great perks. Don't get me wrong, but if you're gonna go invisible, and you should go all in on this, right? So I'm gonna move around. You know, I'm gonna jump up, right, and I can get here, right here. Okay, that's pretty good. At that location, I can challenge anyone that's on this platform here, but you know, people are gonna see me down the lane. They're gonna see me if they, you know, if I'm here, I can't challenge anyone outside, right? And if I'm here, my opportunities to move back into my cover are pretty limited, right? I have to push here, and then I'm exposed from, you know, 2 angles. Or what I want to do is get into the vent, right? That's my goal here, is to get into the vent. So that way, oh my lord, I'm really bad at hunter jump. I want to get into the vent because if I crouch, right, it's hard to tell where someone is if they're crouched in the vent. People don't know if they're on this side of the door or if they're below on the other side. I'm just not even going to bother trying that again. So let's do a Shadowjack now. Let's see how far we can go. Again, our target is in this situation is right here, and then we're going to try to get as far away after. Let's say a target doesn't show up, right? See how far we can get. So again, moving up or up. See, we can actually get all the way across into the other area, invis, completely invis. So we could drop down on someone and shotgun them here, right? That's really good. We could even get up into the vent and stick someone, right? We could flux, we could stick them from the vent. So again, we're gonna do that one more time just to show you what it looks like. This is without Shadowjack. Okay, we're jumping up, sprinting, sprinting, sprinting. And it's gonna break right before we get into there, right? And this is the point where we're gonna show on radar too. So people are gonna be prepared for us to be in vent if they read their radar right, or they're gonna expect us to be somewhere close. With invisibility, they have no idea, right? They heard us, but maybe they didn't necessarily see us move into the vent. So that's why I would use Shadowjack. I don't think if you're gonna go invis, switching weapons is not gonna be your main priority. Having a long slide, not gonna be your main priority. Getting into a range where you can shotgun someone or flux is. So that extra time will let you get into that range. Moving through cover is actually really important when you're invis, because again, when you go invisible, there's a very loud audio cue to the opponent. And that's good it provides an opportunity for your opponent to have counterplay. It's bad for things in the game to exist that have no counter to them. Shotguns, the counter is positioning. Snipers, the counter is positioning. Fusions, the counter is cover, right? There's all these things that you can do in the game that counter what your opponent wants to do, right? If they attack you from the air, you can stay planted on the ground and have better accuracy than them. Like, there's lots of different things that happen. So in Viz, the counter is just hearing where they are and predicting where they're going to. Now the key word here is predicting right? You don't have any true idea of where they're going to go because they don't show up on radar. But by hearing it, you kind of have a good idea of how you're going to move around the map. So if I go and Viz out here, I don't want to push straight forward, right? They're going to expect me to push straight forward. I'm going to just push around vents and come through here. And then they're going to be, expecting me to come through that door, and I'm going to end up behind them or beside them, and I'm going to be able to stick them because obviously since I went around, I'm not going to have enough time to, primary challenge them or even maybe to get into shotgun range. But I am going to have time to stick them and then run away. Go back to vents, crouch, do it all over again. With invisibility, you can just be invis the entire time. You don't actually have to not be invis to be in an engagement. 9 seconds, again, an eternity, real long time. I moved across half the lane here, completely invisible. There is an internal cooldown on it, but, as you can see, it's pretty short. I can go invis. I can run all the way out, to perform a piece of cover. Do another piece of cover if I want to. So that's how you use it to your advantage, right? If your target's in front of you and you go invis, don't run at them. Like, if you play against someone really bad, they're not going to know what's going on, right? They're not going to really be able to tell what is happening until after you kill them the initial time. But after that initial time, they're going to know, like, oh, that's what someone in Viz looks like. I should probably kill them. And if you run around them, then you take advantage of the fact that you don't show up on radar. And you can tell because if you look at the radar up in the top left there, it's the little caret isn't there anymore. When the caret is showing, that means on your enemy radar, they can see you. When the caret isn't there, like when I crouch, I flash. That's actually what it looks like to your opponent. You're flashing in and off the radar. When you're invis, as you can tell, there is no caret on your radar. So you don't show up at all until it breaks. All right. That's pretty much all I have for you guys this time. If you want to submit me gameplay, again, send it to Keen at cruciblebootcamp.com, Keen at cruciblebootcamp.com. Threes, rumble, elimination, all that good stuff. That's what I review. Don't send me 6s or 4s. I don't do that. And if you want to support the show, as always, you can become a Patreon backer or just, follow the stream, subscribe on the YouTube. I put out videos every week. And if it isn't up, it'll be archived on Twitch if I'm behind. So you can always check it out there. Thank you guys for watching, as usual. And thank you very much for your support if you've been supporting me. I've been your host, King Koala. And class is dismissed. See you guys later.